Imagine the wealthiest woman in your city summons you to her palace. She looks you dead in the eye and says, "Obey me or you'll never be welcome here again." Now imagine she's famous for her charity work, respected, powerful, connected at the highest levels. What would you do? The Miracles and Prophecies of St. John Bosco, a project of America Needs Fatima. I'm your host, Adrian Fonseca. Subscribe for new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Welcome to the Miracles and Prophecies of St. John Bosco. I'm Adrian Fonseca. These videos exist to share timeless wisdom from St. John Bosco that can transform your spiritual life today. How do you stay true to your convictions when someone powerful tries to manipulate you? We've all been there. Maybe it's a boss who wants you to compromise your values. Maybe it's a family member who uses guilt to control your decisions. Or maybe it's someone who dangles money or opportunity in front of you with strings attached. Well, Don Bosco faced exactly the situation. Oh, and stick around because later in the video, I'm going to ask you to do something really simple that could help spread this message to someone who desperately needs to hear it today. The year was 1846. Don Bosco had just returned to Turin and was living in complete poverty. He and Mama Margaret stayed in a rundown building known as the Bagnardi House. People whispered everywhere, "That priest and his little ragamuffins are starving." And they weren't wrong. And now enter the Marchioness Barolo. She had previously hired Don Bosco to tutor the young girls in her care. But they'd parted on, let's just say, less than ideal terms. So when she heard Don Bosco was back in Turin, she sent one of her trusted agents with a message. "Tell him that if he does not yield to my wishes, he will never be welcome in my home again." Now think about that for a second. This wasn't just some empty threat. For someone as poor as Don Bosco, losing her support meant complete ruin. Or so she thought. Instead of bowing down, Don Bosco simply smiled. And when he later visited the Marchioness, she didn't actually slam the door in his face. She greeted him respectfully. He continued preaching at her institutions, hearing confessions, offering help whenever needed. But here's the key. He never gave up his freedom to follow God's will. This powerful woman thought that she had cornered him. But really, heaven was cornering her. Meanwhile, something else was happening in Turin. The state was issuing decrees trying to control Catholic schools, including those run by cloistered nuns. Bishops protested, and the king granted some limited exceptions. However, many sisters still faced strict requirements. So above the laughter and chaos of his boys at the oratory, Don Bosco heard the cries of these nuns. So what did he do? He dedicated his precious limited time to personally training the sisters. He prepared them for their exams, and they passed with honors. Without Don Bosco's help, these sisters might have lost their schools completely. He was already shaping the future of Catholicism, quietly, humbly, and behind the scenes, with no fanfare whatsoever. So, back to the Marchioness Barolo. She'd been busy for years spreading a devotion that was incredibly dear to her heart. In her community, she held 6 days of prayer, 3 for the conversion of sinners, and 3 in thanksgiving. Rome approved it. Pope Gregory XVI granted indulgences, and later Pius IX made them permanent. This was her crown jewel, the devotion that she believed would be her legacy. But here's where it gets interesting. The Marchioness decided that she wanted a book written on the mercy of God to promote this devotion even further. So she gathered her most trusted advisors to suggest an author. The famous Silvio Pellico, a renowned writer and intellectual, immediately exclaimed, "Don Bosco!" And she immediately responded, "No, absolutely not." On the surface, she was just worried about burdening an already overwhelmed priest. But if we're being honest, deep down she couldn't stand being in debt to the man who had defied her. This proud woman, with the best of intentions, was about to learn that heaven doesn't take no for an answer. Silvio knew in his heart that Don Bosco was the perfect author for this book. When he visited the oratory, he saw Don Bosco telling everyone to invoke God's blessed mercy. And during sermons to the young people, he heard him repeat, "Have you fallen by misfortune into sin? Do not be discouraged. Return to confession immediately with the proper dispositions. The confessor has the authority and command from God to forgive you. even if you have fallen not just 7 times, but 70 times 7. One day, Pellico had told Don Bosco what had happened with the Marchioness. Quietly, without any fuss, Don Bosco started writing. He wrote a compelling booklet on the mercy of God, full of encouragement, stories of conversion, and trust in God's forgiveness. The whole thing focused on penance, prayer, and the conversion of sinners. But here's the part that blows my mind. He published it without using his name. He let the Marchioness enjoy the victory. He never revealed that it was his work. Think about that. Her greatest achievement, the thing that she had been remembered for, was ghostwritten by the man that she tried to silence. You can't make these things up. Don Bosco didn't do this for recognition. He wasn't building his own personal brand. He didn't care about getting credit. He only wanted sinners to trust in God's mercy. And in the end, heaven made sure that his pen achieved what her wealth never could. Stories like this one, about Don Bosco, they need to be heard by more people. In a world where standing up for what's right feels impossible, where humility looks like weakness, where worldly power seems to always win, Don Bosco shows us that there's another way. But here's the thing. These videos only reach more people if you help spread the word. So I have to ask you for a favor. Not for me, but for Our Lady, for Don Bosco. If this story inspired you, if it challenged you, or if you know someone who needs to hear about Don Bosco's courage and humility today, please hit that share button right now. Send this video to a friend. Post it on your social media. Drop it in your group chats. You never know whose life might be changed just by hearing the story. Every like, every share, every subscription helps YouTube show these videos to more people who desperately need to hear Don Bosco's message. You might think one share doesn't matter, but that's exactly how heaven works, through small, faithful actions that multiply beyond what we can imagine. So please take 10 seconds right now and share this video. Let's work together to spread Don Bosco's legacy to every corner of the internet. The world will try to control you, threaten you, silence you. But when you're following God's will, heaven always gets the final say. Don Bosco's story proves that true power doesn't come from wealth, position, or influence. It comes from humble obedience to God's will. And when you choose to serve, rather than be served, when you give without expecting recognition, when you trust in divine providence rather than human approval, you align yourself with heaven's plan. And before you go, you absolutely need to watch this next video. It's about another radical sacrifice that Don Bosco made. The day he destroyed his violin forever. Click on it right now to discover why this talented musician smashed his instrument underfoot and never played it again. It's one of the most powerful stories of sanctity that you'll ever hear. And it perfectly complements today's message about sacrifice. Thank you for joining me today. St. John Bosco, pray for us. May God bless you, and Mary Immaculate keep you under her mantle. God love you.